Good afternoon, everyone. It is a beautiful Thursday coming to you from Austin, Texas. This is Chris Weiser, MSP Channel Chief with Artisan Infrastructure. And we have about 1 minute to start, so we'll go ahead and get started. I know we have some people filing into the room, but I am going to start this on time, so we are in good shape here. We have about a 30-minute or so presentation. I also have Technical Account Manager Christian Johnston on the line with me, so I'll be introducing him shortly, and we'll go ahead and get started. And we will have some time for Q&A as well afterwards, so please feel free to write down questions as you go, and then we will get them answered, basically everything we can for you. And I have my lovely assistant, Zach, here with me, where he's taking questions, and so we'll answer them away. So, all right, we just got a couple seconds, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right, it is 3 p.m. Central Time, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Chris Weiser, MSP Channel Chief with Artisan Infrastructure. And some of you on the call already know me because I actually owned an MSP for over 10 years. I also have on the line with me Christian Johnston, also from Artisan Infrastructure. He's a technical account manager here. Good afternoon, Christian. Can you hear me?
Yes, Chris. Good afternoon, and to the audience, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, you're in beautiful Florida today, so I think I'm a little jealous of you, so that's, how's the weather?
Still working, but in sunny South Florida, yes, thank you.
That's good, that's good. Okay, so some things that we are going to cover today on our webinar. We're going to talk a little bit about our MaaS product. We call it internally MaaS, but and I think mostly it's because of the as-a-service thing that's kind of hit the industry in the last few years. But we're going to talk about Move-as-a-Service and how to properly drive cloud business for you, your company, for your MSP or your IT solution provider, and for your clients. So some things that we're going to talk about: how to leverage the MaaS for your clients, how to use and realize that our MaaS product is completely free, how to use that MaaS product to get 100% profit for you and to drive profit in your pipeline, and how we can actually work together with our Artisan team to drive cloud revenue to new levels. So we'll go ahead and get started. And to keep in mind, remember to ask questions, and we'll kind of put your questions down, and then feel free to put them into either raise your hand on the questions or put them into the chat window, and Zach will go ahead and get them ready for me and Christian. So there's some pretty pictures. We got Christian down there on the bottom. We got me. So that's kind of who's talking today, and we'll go ahead and get rolling. So a couple questions, and where I come into play with a lot of the cloud decisions and a lot of discussions that we're talking about here is I had an MSP that I grew from a one-man show to a multi-million-dollar enterprise in about 10 years. You know, it kind of took a little bit of time, but it definitely grew. And about 50 to 60% of my business in my MSP was actually driven in the cloud, and it was driven through Artisan Infrastructure as my backbone. So it's been a really good fit for me to come and work here with Christian and some of the other guys, and Brian Hierholzer, who's our CEO. So it's been a really, really good fit. And some of the ways that you want to start to determine where you want your clients to be is looking at, should they be in the cloud in the first place? And a lot of end users are just going to assume that answer should be yes at all times because they hear cloud and it's a buzzword and it's the thing that's out there and all those things from start to finish. But in reality, there's certain clients that are a good fit, and we actually ran into that here at Artisan in the last few days with looking at a couple of AutoCAD clients and different pieces. And obviously, we would like every bit of your business, and I think you'd like to take every one of your clients to the cloud, but sometimes you have to look at, should they be there from a functional standpoint? So some ways that I do some differentiators to kind of qualify whether they should be in the cloud or not. I think the biggest one that I would, and Christian, feel free to chime in here if you have anything that you want to talk about with what I'm talking about, and then we got some Q&A with you. But the biggest thing that I kind of go down a checklist. And number one is, do they have multiple locations? Clients with multiple locations and database-driven scenarios are almost always a phenomenal fit and a better fit in the cloud than they're going to be for on-prem. I'm going to give you an example of one of my MSP clients that I had. It was a pretty large lumber company, and it's funny because you think about a lumber company of not being too forward-thinking, but we actually started out, I think, in 2009 with them doing break-fix. So we were just doing 40-hour blocks of time, $100 an hour or $90 an hour, whatever, in the MaaS type environment. And they were running a Unix-based system, and they already had 5 locations at this time. They were running a system called Advantage, running off, actually, I think it was Linux, not Unix, but same difference. And they were running into a lot of problems with their Time Warner internet going down at the basically the HQ site, where they literally had a server sitting under a desk, and that was what their whole server was. They had VPN, so they kind of had like a mini network and mini WAN across multiple different locations, and they were a perfect candidate for me to really start working on Artisan. I had gotten the demo. Oddly enough, I got my demo from Christian back 5, 6, 7 years ago. I think you're pushing those. You said 5 years, right, Christian? Here?
5 years this week, yes, thank you.
Yes, yeah, there we go. So I think, it was 5-ish years ago, and they were a perfect fit because they were looking at okay, Chris and TechSquad, that was my MSP, Chris and TechSquad, come fix our network, show us what you do. So we looked at it, we kind of analyzed it, and we said, all right, we have one main server, and we have multiple different locations. What can we do to actually bring your environment to the cloud? We decided to put a test environment up here at Artisan, and it was our first client, our first real client. We put the test environment up here at Artisan, and we built it around there, and then we slowly migrated their environment to the cloud and gave them multiple different sites where they could all come in through IPsec VPN, and it worked really, really well. Now, my big challenge back in 2010, this was actually, was how do we take that massive amount of data that they have and how do we get it to the cloud? And back in 2010, it was a challenge. It was really difficult to do. We had to actually build that entire it was actually a Server 2008 R2 environment at the time. And we basically had to move the databases over the air and then get them to sync up. But luckily for us, they were actually building a brand new software POS environment for their lumberyard / retail hardware store. And it worked really, really to our advantage that we had to build a brand new network. But where my whole discussion here goes is 5 years ago, moving your clients to the cloud was a big, big challenge. Now with our Move-as-a-Service, it's become something that's very, very good to use. So looking at that second question, how do you qualify them? Well, actually, let me kind of rewind a little bit. I had a couple other pieces that I skipped over, because I get excited when I talk. But number one was make sure they have multiple locations. Number two, make sure the database-driven type of environment or a desktop's, are they going to be physically able to use a terminal server type of environment or a VDI type of environment, depending on what you want to bring them. Ideally, in a cloud type environment, either having a specific database that's in the cloud or moving them with a remote desktop or terminal server type environment is your best scenarios. And then also, are they going to have enough internet speed to make cloud work for them? That's really your top 3 qualifiers, especially from the sales side, making sure that they're going to be a good fit. And then once you get them to the point of where they are qualified, how do you actually get them there? Well, back 5 years ago, like I stated, it was very much a challenge to try and get any of that data to the cloud, and Move-as-a-Service or MaaS really, really makes that a simple process. So I'm going to talk a little bit with Christian. I'm going to throw a couple interview questions out at him, and we can kind of see how the MaaS process actually works. So Christian, I'm going to throw a couple questions at you. These are a little bit off the cuff, so hopefully you have good answers for me. But I have my questions written, so I'm just going to read them. But Christian, can you please help us understand how to, from the client side, or from the MSP side, or the wholesale partner side, I guess we want to call it, please help us understand how to initiate a Move-as-a-Service or a MaaS.
Sure, great question. This is a very structured and defined process, and we make it really simple. So it's intended to be, as it is a value add at no cost, extended as a white glove offering. So essentially, to kick off a migration project, there's some information that we'll need to collect. but it'll all be started by submitting a support case indicating that you want to consume our MaaS offering. Service desk will send you out a worksheet. The worksheet is a simple Excel, and we ask for some data points, i.e., what is the name of the virtual machine, but more importantly, how many vCPU, how many vGigs of RAM, and as well the ability for you to switch the IP address during the migration. So that's how you would initiate a Move-as-a-Service request, by starting off opening up a support case.
Okay. So once they do that, what's the next steps that the wholesale partner should expect after that? What's the process?
Sure. So the worksheet will indicate a start date and an expected completion date of when you would like to pull the trigger and complete the switchover. Once you've uploaded the worksheet, Service Desk will review. They're going to assign you what we call a dedicated Move account, which will have an IP address associated to it. So they'll send you out an instructions PDF, which is going to have a download link to the installer. It's really simple. There's no outbound, or there's no inbound ports that you'll need to open or manipulate on your firewall. All you need is a local admin account on the workload that you're migrating. We will assign an IP address to your project. So once you've installed the software, it's a really lightweight service that runs on the Windows workstation, or server rather. You'll point it back to our IP address that we assign to you. It uses port 24 and 25,000 outbound. All this will be detailed on the instructions. But essentially, once you've installed the technology and pointed it back to our IP, just simply update the case and let us know that you're ready for the project to commence.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, it sounds pretty. And I'm somewhat techie, but I started actually out as the standalone engineer and moved into I'm going to be the CEO and run the company. I was doing far more sales than I was doing tech, but to me that actually sounds like a pretty damn simple process. So that's pretty nice. Based on that, let's talk a little bit about how does the wholesale partner of Artisan get all of the data. You heard me talk about some of my issues with my main client 5 years ago that I started with Artisan with. What's the process like actually getting the data here? Is it all over the internet and some of those things, and then maybe talk a little bit about functionality as well?
Sure. We make it really simple, so we have to provide some options. In all cases, it may not be able to go completely over the wire just due to some of the customer bandwidth limitations, Chris, as you've pointed out. So we provide with two options. One option is to elect to ship in removable media. So this happens as part of the documented process. Once we receive the confirmation that you've installed the software, we will then instruct you on how to start allowing the process to copy to removable media. So that'll take the base images, all of the heavy lifting, if you would, and allow you to ship in those images. Now, the way that the technology works is very unique. So from the time that the data has been copied to the removable media, obviously there's still data change rate that's occurring. So it doesn't matter if you ship it in overnight, it's not necessary. You could ship it in via ground, depending on your timelines. The good news is all of the data change rate from that point forward will replicate over the wire. So the idea is that once we've received the removable drive and we seed that in, everything is in a full sync. Now keep in mind, we like to have a fail-safe and cut back any issue of shipping disks back and forth. So if you do elect to ship in over the FedEx or UPS with removable media, we're going to recommend that the job runs for about 48 business hours, just so that we can monitor the data change rates, tweak or optimize anything necessary. This way you don't end up shipping the drive in vain. So our team will actually walk you through the data seeding process. Now, there is a fail-safe to avoid us consuming all of the customer's upload or internet bandwidth connection. So on the worksheet, we're going to ask you, how much bandwidth do you want to commit to the project? So as an example, if the customer has a bonded T1 line, they might only have 3 megabits to work with. So you're not going to want to consume all of that speed. So on the worksheet, you'll dictate that you only want to commit 2 meg to the project, or if you have more, it'll make it go more efficiently. But the idea is, if you have enough bandwidth, you can elect for it to go entirely over the wire. So essentially the same process. It'll seed in the base image. It is real-time replication. So as data change, it'll continue to replicate that, and we become into a full sync or a full mirror at one point.
Yeah, you actually said the word T1, and I think that's like a 4-letter word to us in the tech industry. That's kind of funny. I can't even think of the last time I saw a client with a T1, but I know they're still out there. It's kind of funny. Okay, so that works pretty well, and that's pretty seamless, it sounds like. So once it's full sync, now you talked about sending the C drive, which really helps, but once it's full sync, how does the MSP or the partner test? What's the next steps after that?
Sure. So of course it makes sense to do some testing prior to the cutover. So the program offers a really nice feature that we call test plan, and during a test plan we can virtualize all of the replication points. Now keep in mind, this does not affect the customer premises, nor does it affect the real-time replication. So in the test plan, you can witness all of the workloads come live into your VPDC. You can log into them, validate all of the services are starting, and test any IP schema that you have you want to test. And we do recommend that during that process, you kind of draw out a little playbook so that when it does come time to do the live switchover, you're fully prepared. You've been there, you've seen that, and you have a full plan. So the nice part is any changes that are made to the test plan, when we back out of them, they all disappear. And again, real-time replication keeps us in a full mirror state.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. So once the testing's all done, and I know you were talking a little bit about the switchover piece, but when you go from test to live, what's the steps with that? And I think, the test piece is huge and the heavy lifting piece is huge, but the most critical piece to talking to a client is, hey, we're going to make this seamless and here's our plan. How do they see that it's going to be seamless? Meaning they being not only the wholesale partner, but how does the end user of the wholesale partners realize and get, how does the seamless piece work?
Sure, that's the beauty of the whole offering, is that it is a real-time replication component and as close to real-time failover, meaning once we get into a full sync, you might run the test plan during or off business hours on any day of the week, right, because it doesn't affect anything. But when it does come time to do the real switchover, there's already been some planning and some testing that has been involved. Switchover, being that we're 24/7, 365 operation, can be done during any maintenance window of your choice. So the nice part is when it does come time to do that live switchover, we all get on the phone together between you and the service desk team. We indicate that we're in a full mirror. It's all dictated on your timeline. And effectively, because we're in full sync, there's no data inconsistency. And typically, I would say it's an average of about 6 minutes while you're instructing the customer not to use their local or their production premises server, their workload or line of business utility, while you're conducting the switchover. And then you'll actually get to see the virtual machines start to inventory and power on within your VPDC here at Artisan. So it's during that point where you'll want to start changing DNS records or repointing your customer to the new IP address and effectively decommissioning either the services, disconnecting the network, or actually powering off the workloads that are back on the local side of the client premises office. And this will help to avoid a split brain scenario. Effectively, once we pull the switchover trigger and all of those VMs come live within your Artisan environment, the project is deemed successful and we've completed the live migration.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. So just a couple things just from me as the MSP CEO guy thinking here. You mentioned that we would want to, we'd have 6 minutes in there and then we'd have downtime for the clients. We can do this after hours, right?
Absolutely. Like the maintenance window of your choice, 7 days a week,
so
365 days a year.
Yeah, that's great. So one of the things that I think was added to me, obviously the MaaS piece is a big deal for MSPs that we've added here at Artisan, but another piece that we've added, and you'd have to tell me exactly when that got added because I was not here as an employee back then, but exactly when it happened. But we offer real human 24/7, 365 support, which to me is if you compare that with any of the other IaaS vendors out there, that's borderline unheard of. If I don't even know if anybody else has it. But when did that go into effect?
Chris, I think that's about 9 months ago. It's the continued investment that we're making into our partner base, and thinking about awesome. Artisan as being an extension of the team. We want to make ourselves available to, help support and most importantly, mutually retain any customer, end customer, and support our MSP and our partner in any issues they may see.
Yeah, that's a big deal. So I know I had that on this next slide here, but just a couple things from my standpoint from the sales side, and realize again that Christian's on the technical side, but I'm far more on the sales marketing. How can we help drive revenue to you as the wholesale partner? And Christian, the first thing here I'm going to have you talk a little bit about that we do not charge for MaaS in any capacity as a pro service. Now, this is probably about $1,000 value to you as the MSP. I think we actually have it skewed up as some type of a cost. I don't really know what it is off the top of my head, but it is not something that we charge you for. And the real, obviously we know what the value is. It's something that's totally free. But I had an MSP that we were talking to from Florida about 2 weeks ago, and we were just kind of pricing out his potential as a brand new client for him, somebody that he was just bringing on board, and he had no prior cloud offering to us, and he was looking at them and saying, well, okay, so I actually have 3 client servers and hosted exchange, and then I'm going to have 35 users moving into this, and we priced it out so where he was actually talking about doing $1,000 flat fee per server move for his client, and he was able to close this deal on 3 servers, 35 user hosted exchange, and he got a $4,000 fee from his client, just a flat fee, and he pays Artisan nothing for that. So that was really, really valuable. Obviously, he's got recurring costs, basically recurring money that he's going to make, and I think he actually sold that for about $8,000 a month. So he really did a good job selling that. But Christian, talk a little bit about just the whole encompassing piece of the zero-cost cloud migration, if you had any feedback. I know you and I were talking about it briefly yesterday.
Yeah, it is a great opportunity to monetize a service and not have, really a cost of goods from as heavy lifting or labor, but more importantly, licensing perspective. So I'd say as an MSRP out on the market, you're looking anywhere from $300 to, as Chris mentioned, in the upwards of $700 just for a license per server to be able to provide this type of offering, let alone the labor and the cost that goes into the training and the knowledge to conduct. So fully encourage our partners to monetize and add some margins on that offering.
Yeah, and I would really recommend $1,000 per server as a charge to your clients. If nothing else, you can give it away as a long-term way to, you're going to give it away free if you sign a 48-month deal. That's what that's the kind of leverage that you can get by saying, okay, we'll move your servers for free, but you can either pay $1,000 a server, or if you sign in, let's extend this from a 12-month deal to a 48-month deal, or depending on what you're actually doing for long-term contracts, it gives you leverage into long-term contracts. And to give you an idea, almost all of my MSP contracts, from cloud to traditional managed services, were all, I think I only had one that was a 1-year, and everything else was 36 months or longer. In fact, I had one that was a 10-year. So we had some really, really long contracts, which we would use discounting just like this to actually secure the long-term aspects of the agreement. So, okay, thanks on that, Christian. Just a couple things from me on this standpoint. Obviously, the number 3 we looked at already, the 24/7, 365 support really allows you to migrate on your schedule, and I think that's a big factor. You're not forced into doing it during business hours. You can do it whenever you want, on a Saturday at 3 a.m., whatever you want to do. But number 2 is a big deal for me, and it's the one thing that moving clients to the cloud I did not expect. I didn't. We all know how stable VMware is on the back end of even an on-prem server. Like, we got to the point at my MSP where we were deploying even on-prem servers with VMware and ESXi because they were so much more stable. And cloud servers are just as stable, and the really benefit of them is they're more stable because the infrastructure itself, the high availability piece and the storage and the CPUs and the RAM, all that stuff is enterprise grade, so it's far more stable overall, which equals less tickets for you. And I think that's one of the best things that I saw in my MSP, was a way to see my profit go up because, yeah, costs are costs, and you're going to sell for whatever, and you're going to pay whatever, and you're going to sell it for whatever. But when you I don't care how much money you're making on a on-prem server, if you got to support the damn thing every other day, it's not cost effective for you. It becomes a loss leader almost, and you're just trying to get rid of the client because they call all the time. And I had a couple like that. They're like, stop calling, and then their server fails, and you got all kinds of issues that go into it. So we'll get into a little bit more on that. But then also the MaaS piece is, as you have clients that are coming to end of life on their equipment, whether it's Server 2003, Server 2008, I think as MSPs or IT providers, we are all thinking in the mentality of how fast can I turn over this gear? And the client's trying to stretch it out to, if a client never had to change out a server, they would be happy. But we're trying to get it down to, hey, your server's 24 days old. I think it's time for a new one. We're trying to think of that mentality as fast as we can turn that thing. One of the real big values of going cloud is the low cost to entry, that no CapEx type number, and that equals more deals for you in the long run. So keep that in mind as you sell. And, feel free to call me, call Christian. You can get us on the phone at any time. And I'm here to help, and you can see that I have experience in the scenario. And just some certain ways that we can work together to drive revenue for your company is using cloud as your profit leader, not a loss leader or any of those scenarios. I actually am a big believer that on-prem servers are borderline a loss leader, especially if you get a lemon, it can really become a problem. So using cloud as your profit leader, it's less tickets, less management. You could throw your management RMM agent on there, whether it's LabTech, Kaseya, whatever you're using, Ninja RMM, there's a bunch of them that are out there, PacketTrack, GFI. But the bottom line is they create less tickets, they create less problems, the infrastructure is stable, and all that equals less truck rolls and happier clients. And cloud clients are long-term clients. And if you're not selling your cloud deals with a term on them, you need to think about that, and you need to. I run into probably, I'd say 80% of the MSPs I talk to, whether that's when I'm out coaching people, whether that's here at Artisan, they're not selling any of their stuff on long-term deals. And all you're doing is asking for them to move. You're not making them stay. So whether it's a 12, 24, 36-month deal, like I said, my longest agreement at TechSquad IT was my MSP, was a 10-year contract that signed this past March. And I was actually still there up until June. So those are all legit deals. And it also gives you the ability to have a higher MRR. I drove my entire company on MRR, and cash flow is king in our businesses. All of us that are CEOs or business managers, we know those kind of things. And then there's the sticky factor. We're going to be having a webinar in January regarding the sticky factor. And when I talk about sticky, it's keeping things close to your heart, not heart's the right word, but close to you as an MSP that is difficult for them to move. And I was putting every single thing I could get my hands on. I was white labeling it, I was private labeling it, and I was selling it to them, from voice to hosted exchange to cloud to desktops to firewalls to everything I could do. I was providing, and I was white labeling it me, because if they wanted to move, it was going to be a pain in the ass. And we performed really good service, and we did a really good job, but it just makes it so you have one more touch with them. So we'll get into that a little bit more end of January, but I just kind of wanted to talk about that. Christian, did you have any input on any of that? I talk a lot, so I'll let you get a word in.
No, that's great information, Chris. Just on the sticky factor, it's really a message that we've always promote in build, own, and manage. Building your brand, owning your service, and managing your customer really does drive that sticky factor. So look forward to that future coming webinar. One other thing that I wanted to add around stability is when I had my MSP practice and was able to make a successful exit, very similar to you, Chris, going back about 5 years and 6 months now, I still remember one of my favorite clients down in South Florida. It's a property management company that oversaw over 200 HOAs and employed just north of about 60 employees. They used a software that was on a single threaded server in the closet, and when I migrated them to cloud, it was really a relief for the business owner. And he thanked me later and said, I lost a lot of sleep thinking that one day I would come in and my server was just kaput, and I'd have to send all of my employees home for the day. So it really does take some pressure off of the business owner, knowing that the server is in a highly available, redundant facility, rather than them feeling that full liability and the weight on their shoulders.
And I think that's something that actually many MSPs don't even think, I don't want to say don't think about, it's there and we know it's there, but are we delivering that to the end user client and offering potentially a data center tour or other things? Keep in mind, all of you that are wholesale partners, we can do that for you. We can give you a data center tour. Obviously, you got to cart your clients all over the place, but if you have a client that's a big enough client, you're definitely going to be able to want to do that. At least it gives you the opportunity to ask them if they want to do that. And Christian, I will echo 100% your statement about the CEOs thinking that way, because let's go back to that lumberyard client that I initially talked about. We renewed their contract. They initially had a 36-month deal with me that they signed. I think it was November of 2011. They signed a 36-month deal for full cloud. We renewed that agreement the end of 2014, the end of 2014. We renewed that agreement. They signed a brand new 3-year deal with me, and the CEO came up to me, and he was a kind of tough guy to talk to at times, but I had a decent relationship with him, and he came up to me and shook my hand and said, "We're going to do 50+ million this year, and I would not be standing here if not for you and your cloud." And I don't think I had a feeling as a entrepreneur like I've ever had when he did that. And I'm actually, that sounds like an advertisement for Artisan, but it's really not. It's legit in what he said, and it really helped. So, and that,
yeah,
so I echo
Chris,
your statements. Yeah.
The last one I'll add is think about the competitive nature as well, right? And the more legacy mindset, and where we're seeing a lot of service providers come on board to Artisan today is because they might have lost a long-term client or an opportunity. And you talk about the hardware refresh. Walking into a small, medium business and saying, look, you're due for a hardware refresh, and you're looking at, a monetary CapEx expenditure of $30,000, $40,000 in hardware, maybe $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 in project time, and that business owner has a lot to swallow. So those become really long sales cycles. When your competitor might walk in behind you and say, wait, you're saying you're going to put hardware in your single-threaded, quote-unquote, closet cloud? Why don't we just take your line of business utility, virtualize it, and deliver it to you as a service so you have access to it from any location, anytime, any device? So thinking about that mindset, you will be the market leader. You will be able to walk into any customer office leveraging our Move-as-a-Service technology and essentially take that image, the entire server as is, and just simply relocate it to another location, and then that customer has the compliance to pay monthly for an ongoing service that you're delivering, rather than that large output of capital expenditure for new hardware.
Yeah, and cash flow is so king for those small businesses. So, yeah, I agree with that 100%. So, Christian, we got a lot of questions. We legit have a ton of questions. So we're at the bottom of the hour. Anybody that wants to stay, we are recording this. There was a couple questions on that. We are recording this. This will be on our website page. I sound like my dad when I say website page. But on the bottom of the screen there, you can see the actual address for the webinars page on the web. So I'm going to get into a couple questions here really quick, and then we'll talk about that. So this first question, Christian, is for you, is from Omar. Christian, is there visual support of the Move-as-a-Service process?
Yes, so we will get out to you as part of the case that you create, an actual workflow that'll explain to you step one, fill out the worksheet. It's an Excel spreadsheet, really simple. It asks for a good collection of information, but if you simply hover your mouse over any one of the cells, you'll see a pop-up that will explain to you what we're looking for. But feel free to reach out to us and allow us to help you out with the worksheet. Again, step two is then we'll send you out the instruction sheet where you'll follow our simple step-by-step. It's really just a next process, and then let us know that that's complete, and then we'll actually start the project where you'll get play-by-play case updates on the progress as things are replicating over.
Okay, cool. I have another question, question number 2. This is from Brent. A lot of cloud providers require a sysprep of Windows Server to make the virtual machine drivers that of the underlying hypervisor. Does MaaS require this? Number one. And then second part of the question, how does it get the VM drivers to Artisan's hypervisor backend?
Perfect question. I'll answer that.
I'm glad that came to you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually really simple. It's just based on the technology that we're using. So keep in mind continuous data replication or real-time. As part of the failover, it's actually injecting the VMware tools, the VMware drivers on the initial boot. So there's nothing that you need to do from that perspective, as well as a huge value add. If you're building a layer 2 IPsec tunnel from the customer premises location into your Artisan VPDC, you don't have, in a layer 2 VPN, you don't want to have overlapping subnets. So again, part of the process is all automated through the technology. You can change the internal RFC 1918 IP schema on the NIC card. So again, this is all automated, and it's all done through the process, and that's what allows us to say that it's an average of about 6 minutes before that VM comes live with the CPU, the RAM, the drivers, and the new NIC IP if you desire to change that, or you can just leave it the same. Really simple.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. Brent, hopefully that answers your question. If it does not answer all of your question, please reach out, send a response to the follow-up email, and Zach or myself will get back to you, and we'll arrange a call with Christian. Or if you know Christian, you can just call him or email him, either one. Okay, Christian, we got a couple more questions. This one I think I can answer. This is from Todd. Is this a promotional offer, and does the offer expire? Actually, no. Move-as-a-Service to our wholesale partners is a completely free product at all times. So this is one of our value adds that we give you, the wholesale partner, the MSP. So completely free product, does not expire. If you want, you can pay me or Zach. We definitely would take money for it, but it's a completely free product. So hopefully that answers that question for you, Todd. Next one, is there a limit to how often I can use MaaS? Christian, I'm going to say no, but why don't you answer that question?
We're doing them all day, every day, and we welcome as a value add. We're very happy to help you migrate your workloads here to Artisan.
Sure. Okay, great. And number 5, I already answered that. Will this be recorded? Yes, Mike. The webinar is being recorded, and we will have it up on the webinars page. We will also have a YouTube channel it's going to be added to. So these are some of the values that I'm bringing here to Artisan and through my experience. I used to do webinars. In fact, webinars and in-person seminars was how I built my MSP from the ground up, and I had tremendous success doing that. So it was pretty fun. So Zach, do we have any more questions? We're good. We're done with questions. Okay, cool. Christian, do you have anything else that you wanted to go over? Or are we pretty good?
No, I just wanted to emphasize the simplicity here and our willingness to do all the heavy lifting, and again, thank everybody for their time from my side.
Yeah, and it almost seems too good to be true. And I think the one thing I'll say is let's do one, and then you'll see how well it goes, and then you can sell the too good to be true to your clients. That's what I would say. And because I've had a couple of in fact, the MSP that bought my MSP has now migrated a ton into Artisan, and they had almost zero cloud experience prior to buying my MSP. So just a couple webinars that are coming up. I know we have the holiday year, so we don't have anything going over the next 2-ish weeks. Number 1, selling cloud services, the importance of selling sticky. You heard me talk about sticky earlier. This is something that I will be on the webinar almost exclusively on, because this is really my forte and kind of my bread and butter. So I will talk a lot about selling cloud services, how to sell sticky, how to keep your stuff in line, not just selling your IaaS or your desktops as a service with Artisan, but also selling voice and other things, and making sure that you stay sticky with your clients to make sure that you have long-term cash flow. So that's one. And then also January 21st, building your DaaS practice. DaaS is desktops as a service. We have a couple brand new offerings that are coming out. Obviously, you could build it right now. I built desktops as a service as my practice starting in 2010. You heard me say that. But we're going to be giving you a DaaS blueprint. So basically how to build your own desktops as a service practice for small, medium, and large clients with our Artisan Elastic Private Cloud. So both of those are going to come up, obviously January 7th and January 21st. Other than that, I think we're good. Zach, any other questions, or are we good? Good to go. All right, so I'm going to end our webinar for today. Oh, wait, one more question. You can tell it's live. Okay, say that again.
Can you move between operating software versions, i.e. Windows 2003, 2004?
Okay. So Christian, the question that just came across was, can you actually, when you're doing your MaaS, can you change operating system versions? That's actually a really good question. And so they're saying, I got basically Server 2003 on-prem. Can I move to 2012 in the cloud, for example?
That is a really good question. Yeah, that is a really good question. So let's just allude to, in high level, how the service actually works. So it is an image-based replication technology. So the workload is going to come over exactly verbatim as to how it is on the client side. But there can still be a lot of value to add there. Number one, it doesn't matter if it's a physical, doesn't matter if it's a virtual. Hardware agnostic, doesn't matter what hypervisor it's coming from or what hardware vendor it's coming from. But the idea is it is an image-based technology. So the underlying disk, as is from the OS perspective, is replicated. Now, to add a little bit more value to that answer, once it gets into Artisan, you're in a full VMware environment with native access and control. You have the ability to leverage the VMware snapshot technology and actually perform an upgrade or a migration at that point. So it's not uncommon that we are asked to migrate, older legacy type operating systems. Once they get into very simply, either copy that data across the network to a new staged workload, or leveraging VMware snapshot technology with little to no risk, being you don't know about this, go ahead and run an in-place upgrade. But the direct answer to that question is we're replicating everything as it is, which cuts back on the configuration and any downtime.
Hey Christian, I'm gonna stop you there. We're actually, I think you're running, because you're in Florida, you're running into some VoIP issues because you're breaking up. You sound like a robot.
Okay.
So maybe it's because of Star Wars tomorrow night. I don't know. But so one thing I'll say on that is we used to do a very similar thing with our clients. Is the biggest key is getting them up in the cloud, and once that data is on the cloud, so getting your existing operating system from point A to point B, on-prem or closet cloud, up to IaaS or Artisan Cloud, that's your hardest piece, moving that workload, and then do the upgrade. I would not ever do an in-place upgrade of an existing older server, but that gives you the opportunity to build some new servers right next to it on the same LAN. You could build a brand new 2012 R2 DC, make it a secondary domain controller, and then move all your stuff over, replicate, move it over, blah, blah, blah. So that's how I would, along with what Christian was stating, that's exactly how I would do it. MaaS is perfect for that. It's absolutely perfect for that, especially since there's no cost to you, and you can either charge your client again or make it a part of your whole process. So, okay, any other questions, Zach? Are we good? Okay, if anybody else has any questions, fire away. About 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's too fast to type. But feel free to reach out to us. Again, Chris Weiser, MSP Channel Chief with Artisan Infrastructure, and Christian Johnston, Technical Account Manager. Thanks a lot, Christian. Appreciate your time today. If you're not Mr. Roboto still, are you there?
Yes. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today.
Yep. All right. So again, we'll see everybody again January 7th. Have a great holiday season and enjoy the new year, and we'll see you right after the year. Thank you again from Artisan Infrastructure.